Aha, okay. So, hey, welcome to More Geek Than Gay. Bon dia. And I'm just going to get started. So, getting started.
There's no need to fear. Underdog is here.
Wimpy whoopy, tiny whiny stuff.
Okay. Movies. First, well, I got two movies I want to talk about. I want to talk about the last Fox outing of the Fantastic Four. And, of course, I want to talk about Captain America Civil War. Let me attack the Fantastic Four first because it'll be fast. While it's not current, I think it's very interesting. Now that I finally saw it, I think there's a lot of interesting things to learn from that movie. One, my roommate and I both watched it. It wasn't the worst movie we ever saw. Okay, so many people called it so horrible, and you know what? It was better than that third Batman movie. I'll tell you that. And it, there's worse movies. I'd rather watch it again than either one of the Wolverine movies. That said, it had problems. First of all, you can definitely tell that while I try not to go into research mode with these movies, I had heard that the studio came in and tinkered with it and that the director was not happy with what happened and the mandates that came down. And there does seem to be a definite moment when the movie is taken over by someone who is not the director. And that's pretty much immediately after they get their powers. Up to then, we have basically a retelling of their origin that kind of uses the ultimate Fantastic Four version instead of the traditional Jack Kirby, Stan Lee origin. It introduces a romance angle, unrequited romance angle, or at least a hint of an unrequited romance angle for Dr. Doom, or Victor Von Doom, and Sue Storm, which is pointless and needless. It just doesn't, it makes no sense. It doesn't add or subtract anything. Well, the only thing that subtracts from the story is that it's like you introduce something with no reason for it to be there. So you've now wasted my interest because I'm waiting for the payoff. That never occurs. It's like Chekhov's gun. There's a couple moments like that in the opening. The opening is really slow, but you're kind of thinking, well, that's okay. I don't mind it being so slow because it's going to gear up to when they get their powers and then everything's going to break loose. You're giving me a setup. Fine. I can deal with a setup as long as you make the payoff worth it. Really quickly, I want to address those people who are upset that they use the ultimate version of the Fantastic Four's origin instead of the traditional Stan Lee, Jack Kirby version. And to those people, I'd like to say, shut up. Shut up. Shut up. I love Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's version. Don't get me wrong. And this is not any slam against them. That story would not be written that way today. It could not be written that way today. And if you presented their origin where they just went on base and stole a rocket ship, where Reed Richards and Ben Grimm, Reed Richards a scientist, Ben Grimm a pilot, snuck onto a base, stole a space rocket, and Reed's fiance went, well, if you're going, we're going too, and I'm bringing my kid brother along with me. And you think that that's going to fly with today's audiences, you're an idiot. Okay? And some people said, they just need to make that as a period piece set in the 60s like the original series. You know what? I'm not going to buy it if you set it in the 60s. I might have bought it in 1960, but today, no. I know better. Average audience knows better. Get over it. That origin would never work. There's a reason why they can't use it. There's a reason why they don't even try to use it. There's a reason why we will never see that origin. Just accept that and move on. We're going to always see something more of a lab experiment type origin. And that's fine. That's fine. That still stays reasonably loyal to the idea behind Stan and Jack's origin. Okay, so that said, let's get into where problems really sit. Because up until now, I'm just a little ho-hummed. I'm waiting for everything to happen. Oh, they got their powers. Things are going to start happening now. Well, now the whole story seems to just kind of fall apart. We're introduced to them as being used as government agents, except for Reed runs away. And so there's not a cohesive unit for us to care about them as a group. And then Doom is left behind in this other dimension, and Reed comes and they find Reed, and then they bring Reed into the military thing because they need his expertise, but Ben is upset with Reed. And that's really never resolved in any sort of meaningful way, except for suddenly, we're good, right, bro? Okay. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much the resolution of that. And then we don't care about them as a group because we're not they're not presented to us as a group anymore after they get their powers. Reed becomes the leader. The actor who plays him is absolutely horrible. He's a horrible, horrible actor who plays Reed as some sort of whiny little guy who you wouldn't follow him. Okay, at no point does he grow a pair and become the leader of this group. He says lines that make it sound like he's supposed to, but he has never grown at any point into that for you to feel that way. And so when he decides to gather the group together and we can beat Doom together, there's no reason for anyone to listen to him. You're the guy who abandoned us, so we have no reason to think that you know anything about what we can and cannot do. So shut up, Reed. And then Doom himself. I don't understand I don't fully understand Doom's powers. But then we rescue him from the other dimension. He decides he wants to go back to the other dimension. And hey, while I'm back at the other dimension, I'm going to destroy the Earth and everything in it. Ha 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 ha. Because I'm a two-dimensional villain all of a sudden? His motivation makes no sense. There's nothing that makes sense really about the second half of this movie. It's more like action and let's put together as many conflicts as we possibly can and make them as big as possibly can without any sort of logic or reason and without caring. And that's where the whole thing falls apart, is we don't care and their motivations make no sense. Had they done this, the movie would have been fine. the first half was slow, but you give us a second half and give us the characters we care about, the movie would have been fine. No, someone decided to tinker with it and make it big and conflicty, and that's when it just becomes dumb. Becomes a very dumb movie after that, and you made me sit through the boring part to just insult me with what the hell was I watching? That's the problem. So, this leads us into Civil War. Okay, I saw Fantastic Four a couple days. I think I saw it over the weekend. I just saw Captain America Civil War 2 days ago. I liked it. I liked it. You are not going to hear the same review from me, though, that you hear from everyone else, because I am not in love with this. I do not think it is the best movie that Marvel has done. I think it's a confused mess. Even with me liking it, I think it's a very confused mess that doesn't know what its point is. And, well, okay. It's long. A lot of people go, but it doesn't feel that long. And I'll give them that it doesn't feel like I'm sitting through a long movie. It feels like I'm binge watching an entire season of some show, and I really wanted to take a break and go like have dinner and then come back to it. And you can't do that. It's a movie, so I couldn't just take a break from it. Because it feels very episodic. It doesn't feel like I'm watching one big, long, continuous thing. It feels episodic. Black Panther. Black Panther was great. They introduced a great Black Panther. Very much looking forward to his movie. I think that will be a very strong, potentially a very strong entry. And I'm glad I went and checked the noise, because it gave me a chance to rethink how I want to do this review. And you know what? I am just going to follow my notes. Okay? I have notes that I wrote down here. First off, remember, Kenny and I talked about this in passing, or not in passing, but in part, because we talked mainly about the comic book series. We talked about the movie and what we expected on his last podcast. And I was commenting about how, he mentioned how he thought maybe some stuff from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would be how they play it up, because the universe isn't that big yet for us to care about it as a civil war that would bust across the entire country like it does in the comic books. And fortunately, the movie is smart. It realizes that. It doesn't build that up as a civil war. The civil war that it's talking about is a civil war within the Avengers itself. Okay, pretty much. But I was right. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're caught up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or your Netflix series. They don't care. Nothing from the TV shows matters in the movie universe. And this would have been a good moment for them to try to do that, to try to prove that, oh no, it's one big universe. But they didn't. Everything goes from the movie universe and trickles downward into the TV universe. And then the Netflix universe basically seems to be a creature unto itself that doesn't care, that it's like, it's a stepchild. We don't care about it. Even though everyone's all excited about it, nothing from the Netflix series matters about anything in the rest of the world. Now, one of the things that let me go back to the beginning, like I said. First of all, this isn't a Captain America movie. If you go into it expecting a Captain America movie, you're going to be greatly disappointed, because it's not a Captain America movie. It seems kind of like an Avengers movie. A lot of people are referring to this as more like Avengers 3. it's actually a Tony Stark and his Amazing Avengers movie. Okay, it's Tony Stark's movie. He's the one who has an arc. He's the one who has revelations, changes, everything. He's in the movie as much as Captain America. Captain America does nothing except for make a stupid decision. Okay? He makes a stupid, bad decision. And everything else is Tony Stark. So don't go into this thinking that you're seeing a Captain America movie. You're not. You're seeing a Tony Stark movie. There's one moment that feels like you're watching a Captain America movie, and that is when Captain America and Winter Soldier, they're in Siberia, and they have a little exchange that Vanity Fair for some reason had issues with, and it's like Vanity Fair is trying to prove that they don't understand how anything works. Or that they know how to make mountains out of not even molehills. So, but it's a cute little conversation. If you want to go find out what Vanity Fair said, go for it. It's not even worth pointing out. I am only pointing it out, the Vanity Fair connection, in case you've already heard the clickbait regarding how Vanity Fair has an issue with this conversation. It's the only good conversation that happens with Captain America that makes you feel like you're watching a Captain America movie. Okay? There are fight scenes that happen at the very beginning of the movie with Captain America and his shield that I actually laughed out loud, because watching his shield ricochet around like a bad pinball kind of became really funny CGI. Okay? Spider-Man even makes a comment about how the shield doesn't even obey the rules of physics. And that was great, because the shield work in this movie is the funniest of any of the movies I've seen so far that involve Cap throwing his shield around. It's just kind of funny. Let's see here. What else do I have here? Okay. About halfway through the movie, you end up with this fight scene between all of the characters, and it may be a little bit more than halfway through the movie. It's a really long fight scene that just never ends. It just keeps on going. It keeps on going. It keeps on going. You can't even really follow what's going on that well. I know so many people are probably so excited because it's like, yay, I get to see the big fight scene, and this is what we've been looking forward to. I found it tedious and boring, and it didn't add anything. If anything, it made me wonder about the motivations and the ability of these characters to think anything through, because it served no one's purpose to have this big fight scene the way they did. It definitely didn't fight. It was bad plotting on Captain America's part. It's just a bad fight scene. It's a really well done fight scene, but it's a bad fight scene that goes on for so long that it makes me realize how stupid the fight scene is. So, the most important thing about the fight scene, though, is we get Spider-Man. Spider-Man is in this movie only to let us know that Marvel has Spider-Man. Okay? He serves no purpose in this movie whatsoever. Someone made this weird comment about how, like, oh, and the new characters of Black Panther and Peter Parker and Spider-Man are introduced more organically than what we saw the other characters introduced in Batman versus Superman. To which I call bullshit. Okay? Wonder Woman and Black Panther are introduced pretty much the same way. Okay? They're introduced as major players from the beginning. We get a little backstory, or we get them introduced in such a way that they become major things. They are central parts of the story. Bam. So now we have surveillance video of other characters versus this weird shoehorning in of Peter Parker into a scene with Marissa Tomei playing Aunt May. I don't even start. And then he gets involved in a fight scene and he's sent home, and we don't see him again until the closing credits when they give us an oh duh moment, because the last words of the movie have to be the stupidest, like, no shit Sherlock words I've ever seen in a movie. I like the new Peter Parker. I like the fact that they're going young with him. I think they did a really nice job with the CGI with him and all that. That said, he adds nothing to this movie. Nothing. He was entirely not necessary. You could have borrowed, you could have borrowed a character from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to fill in his exact same spot. But no, they're not going to do that because the TV universe doesn't matter as far as the movie universe, does it? No. And using a character from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would have made much more sense. But nope, that's not going to happen. Instead, we're going to get this scene that feels like it was put together at the last minute. Oh crap, we have the script written, but now we found out that we get to use Spider-Man? Okay, let's figure out a way to introduce him out of nowhere, and then let's put him in the fight scene. Yay! And then send him home, because we don't have a way to use him for anything else in the movie. So, and my notes just shut down here. Here... we get, throughout the movie, they let us know where we are in the world with these huge, huge words that just fill the screen, like, Disneyland, Detroit, just across the screen. It feels like an assault, almost. It's like, okay, there was one moment that I can't remember what city they're in, but I fully expected for Winter Soldier to actually walk smack dab into one of the letters, because it was just that obtrusive. I didn't like that style. I don't know why no one's commented pro or con on it, because it's such a definite thing that's happening. You seem to have an opinion. I don't know. Black Widow played very well. Paul Rudd playing Ant-Man, he is the best parts of this movie as far as light moments, and they're light moments that make sense. Okay, while Spider-Man, the kid being Spider-Man gives you levity of sorts. And he's a chatterbox. He's the way that Spider-Man always was when he was younger, and it's great to see that part of Spider-Man being brought out in the movies. Paul Rudd gives you the goods as far as, yes, this is kind of a lighter moment. So much. Loved him. Hawkeye's an idiot. I don't even know why they bother having him in anything. This is stupid. Let's see. Oh yeah, they also make sure that we know that Disney owns Star Wars, because they make this very blatant reference to the Star Wars movies as part of the solution of one of their problems. Okay, there's a moment when the villain, Baron Zemo, it's Helmut Zemo. I don't think he's a Baron in the movie. There's a villain. It's Zemo. And he goes and finds a secret laboratory in Siberia. And as he opens it up, and every time everybody goes to this abandoned laboratory in Siberia, all I see is some sort of... it looks like an empty set for a video for a death metal band, and they left their drum set in right center stage. That's all I say every time. I just expected to suddenly hear roar, roar, and guar and everything going and everything. Okay, this is. Let me touch on one more thing before I get to actually my biggest problem. And Vision, they actually kind of clear up Vision's powers a bit too, and that's great. The guy who plays Vision does a really nice job. They seem to kind of hint at his interest in Scarlet Witch, which is cool. That's from the comic books. She might be having an interest in him as well, but it's hard to tell whether this is cool or this is creepy, because I understand he's a robot and he was only built like a year and a half ago, but she's, I think, still a teenager. I think they refer to her as a teenager, and he looks like he's a man in his 40s. So him having some sort of romantic interest in her still possibly looks kind of creepy. I don't know. Oh, and one thing that I remembered at the last minute. In the comic books, they bring back a character who had been introduced as Black Goliath, and he then dropped the black part and he just was Goliath, and he was like a giant man type character. He could grow, Dr. Foster. And really, the only reason that he's in Civil War is so that they have a death in the middle of a big battle, and so they can kill someone, so that we all know, ooh, the stakes are so important here. No one dies. Spoiler alert, no one dies. But we've got two black characters, and one of them gets to be the one who lets us know how important the stakes are here, okay? And I just find it interesting that out of all the characters, this is the one you're going to do it with. And he serves no purpose in the rest of the movie either, really, except for to be on one side or the other. Okay, that's the only purpose he serves in the movie, is to be on a side and then later be a victim who shows us how important the stakes are. You could have had any other character play this part. Okay, hell, Hawkeye has a bigger part in this, and he's virtually useless. The only person who has a smaller part in this movie is Captain America, whose only purpose in this movie, and this is my biggest problem with this movie, his only purpose in this movie is to make a bad decision. Okay? There's a tragedy at the very beginning which leads the world to want to come up with the Avengers doctrine, and it's something specifically to the Avengers, possibly it's a big doctrine type thing. So possibly it's intended to address all superpowered people. Although Hawkeye apparently is part of it. He's not superpowered. Black Widow's part of it. She's not superpowered. Iron Man's part of it. He's not superpowered. War Machine's part of it. He's not superpowered. So, I don't know. But Captain America has issues with this, and he starts raising a team against it, because he's like thinking, hey, if the United Nations is in charge of us, then what if we want to do something that they won't allow us to do? Or what if they want us to do something we don't want them to do? And it's like, okay, well, that would be kind of the same thing as, what if there was a law that said you're not allowed to do something and you wanted to do it anyway? You either break the law or you don't. In this case, if the United Nations wanted you to do something that you didn't want to do, then you just don't do it, and you just retire from the Avengers. Okay, it's not like you're enlisted. It's actually quite vague. So maybe that was in the big doctrine thing that you are kind of enlisted and you have to do it. But conversations that come up later seem to indicate that possibly that's not the case. Okay? And then Winter Soldier, this happens kind of towards the beginning. Winter Soldier ends up, there ends up being a big explosion that kills a whole bunch of people at the signing of these documents. And Winter Soldier is shown to be like walking away from the thing. And Cap's like going, hey, this is my buddy. I want to find him. Let me at him first. Because the military wants to find him and bring him in. And he's concerned that they'll just try to kill him. Okay. This is the stupid decision that makes the rest of the movie fall into place. Okay. He finds him, doesn't end up bringing him in, so everything plays out exactly the same way as if he hadn't have done that. And his big thing is that he basically wanted to argue against the idea of bringing Bucky in because that was his friend and he didn't think that he could have done it. Well, the trick is that we learn that Bucky is able to be taken over and used as a mindless weapon. And then he starts arguing, well, that wasn't him who did that. That was the programming. Okay. The programming makes him a weapon then. And you're arguing that's not him. Well, we need to confiscate this weapon for safety reasons. And figure out a way if there's a way to separate Bucky from the weapon. Otherwise, you just have a weapon running around that could go off at any moment. Bucky even realizes that. Ultimately, Captain America ends up being right, and this leads to Tony Stark having the arc in the movie as compared to Captain America, who just gets to be defiant and right the entire movie. But he gets to be right for the wrong reasons. And that happens. That happens. You can have entirely wrong reasoning and still come to the right conclusion. But he would not have come to that conclusion again. There's no reliability in how he comes to that conclusion because it's based on a bad decision. And it's based on him wanting to take away all accountability. Because since it wasn't Bucky who did that, Bucky shouldn't be held accountable. No, Bucky is a weapon. He should be held accountable. You guys cause a whole bunch of destruction. You should be held accountable. None of this isn't our fault crap. It's like, if you want it to not be your fault, then you need to take the actions that make it to where everyone will agree. Oh, you are not necessarily at fault for these things happening. He just makes a bad decision. And there seems to be only one moment of him questioning it as compared to everyone else who seems to kind of be willing to go and either have definite reasons why they don't question it, or they have their doubts. Okay. That's my biggest problem with it, is just that Captain America's dumb. He has no personality, he has no arc, and he's dumb. The movie is fun. It leaves us with a definite launching for where the rest of this series of movies is going to go and where it all has to end up. But Captain America is just wrong. He's wrong at multiple points in the movie. And we're still left with to feel like Tony learned something and Steve was right the entire time. No, he wasn't. Okay? We could have resolved the end of the movie more peacefully if he hadn't been wrong yet again. He is wrong multiple points in the movie. And that's what leads to all the problems. That's my biggest problem with the movie. That said, go see it. It's enjoyable. Stick around. There are 2 end credit scenes. Okay? Admittedly, the last one is just dumb. It's enjoyable. It's enjoyable. But it leads you to, like I said, the biggest no shit Sherlock situation that Marvel has put out there. Okay? You wouldn't have done what you did if this wasn't the case. Okay, so... But it's an enjoyable movie. You'll have fun with it. I don't know if you need to see it in 3D. I don't know if it's a must-see. It's definitely not... It's not the worst of the Marvel movies. It's better... I would put it in the upper half. But it's not a Captain America movie. And there are better Marvel movies. It's definitely better than Age of Ultron, which should have been a much better movie, but it was so badly written and so badly contrived that it just shot itself in the foot. It's definitely a better movie than Age of Ultron. No doubts. But it's nowhere near as good of a movie as Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier was a much better movie. And that's my thoughts regarding Captain America, Tony Stark and his Amazing Avengers, Civil War.